Hi, this week I watched Orson Welles' adaptation of Franz Kafka's The Trial, originally released in 1962 and starring Anthony Perkins. It follows very faithfully the story of Kafka's original novel that one morning Joseph K. is awoken by detectives who inform him that he is under arrest, but don't tell him what exactly he's under arrest for. He struggles to negotiate the requirements of defending his case, engaging an advocate, all while trapped in the labyrinthine confines of what constitutes the law and unable to find out exactly what it is he's supposed to have done wrong. The film was shot partially in the former Yugoslavia, or then Yugoslavia, and in studios in France. And it has a particular tone, a particular mood that works generally quite well. Wells saw the film as being an allegory for gay persecution. Perkins himself was gay. And so the unspoken crime is that Kay himself is gay. And we see repeatedly his relationships with female characters throwing themselves at him while he is uncomfortable or rebuffs them, is attempting to underline that. I felt this was really kind of a softening or a cheapening of the material. Kafka's original is far more about simply being a person at the mercy of a larger authority, the mercy of an authoritarian or totalitarian state. Um, Wells made the film purely because he'd been approached by a producer who offered him the money in return for making a film that based on a public domain work. He picked The Trial, and it turned out that The Trial, in fact, wasn't in the public domain, although it is today. And so he had to pay to Kafka's estate anyway. Um, the the mood and the tone I feel work very well. There are some very impressive visual scenes and some ideas about rooms being interconnected and the slightly hallucinatory sense of the story. But the script is extremely wordy. There are long scenes of characters rattling off dialogue to each other in a way that feels very disconnected. The dialogue is often very surreal and hypothetical in nature, which makes it very hard to engage with emotionally. And that, combined with the overly stylized, surreal nature of the filmmaking, mean that it's very hard to actually engage with emotionally. Joseph K. himself is so disengaged from his environment. A lot of the time, he doesn't seem very worried about what's happening. That I wonder whether or not the audience should be concerned as well. The core of the film seems to be a panic attack. It's about someone suffering an anxiety attack of the worst thing that could possibly happen happening, that he's being subjugated and tried by the state for a crime that he doesn't even understand or won't be told what it is, and ultimately is executed for it. I feel that the film should reflect that in some way, and I don't feel this is necessarily an objective reading of it. It seems to be entirely about totalitarianism and a person's response to it. And Perkins' version of the response is simply to live with it or brush it off and try and find a way out of it, but never become particularly upset or perturbed by it, which I find very strange. Wells assembles a fairly impressive international cast. He himself takes a supporting role, and there are one or two changes to the script that I feel support it rather well, rather than simply submitting to his execution at the end. Kay laughs in the face of his executioners, who um, wind up chickening out of stabbing him to death and instead simply throw dynamite at him because they're too cowardly to do it face to face. The film is bookended by a parable from the original book about a man waiting to experience the law and waiting by a gate and waiting there his whole life until he discovers at the point of his death that the gate was only for him and that the law was there the entire time. It's, I think, a symptom of the film that this is very unclear and very hard to engage with. Um, Kafka's stories were infinitives, you could say. They are universal stories of fear, terror, subjugation, paranoia. And the film, I think, focuses so much on very specific items and very specific concepts of making this dialogue very rich and complex, of making the film so complex, that there's never any way for the audience to become engaged with what they're doing, to feel the fear and terror and paranoia that Kay should be going through. And as a result, I think it's one of the weakest films I've seen from Welles. And really, I was very disappointed.